Let's take the cotton out of our ears and put it in our mouth and just listen. That would be an easy one. That's how I would translate it to the general public. But if you wanted to say it in a different fashion, it's the fact that we just need to provide a presence. We need to have good men out there having these discussions and lighting the path for others to follow. That's it.
That idea. Good morning. I have the pleasure of interviewing Jeremy Doc Jordan. Came across him the probably about a month ago. Awesome guy. He is a huge mental health advocate. He wants to be able to really give back, continue on with the service. How you doing, Jeremy?
Outstanding. How you doing today, brother?
I'm doing well, man. I'm glad that we actually able to get this recorded. When I was talking to you the other day, that shit was pretty fire.
Good, man. Yeah. It's amazing once you get back into you know, reaching out to those guys you served with, even though we didn't serve, man, immediately when I found out that you were Marine Corps, boom. The conversation changes. And I think that's a big thing in suicide prevention awareness and, getting back into that community and those guys get you back on that regimen forward on the right path. Hey, and it takes guys like me and you telling other guys like me and you is what it takes.
It actually that's the truth right there. Honestly, it's being a corpsman yourself. I told you how much I used to love you guys, and you guys were always the ones making sure that we were taken care of. Then with CBs, we were a close second, but definitely love my
Yeah.
corpsmen.
Yeah, it's such a great honor to be, that one job in the Marine Corps that is not going through Marine Corps boot camp, but to be able to be there beside you guys 24/7, that's a great honor to be that dude. So much appreciated.
Man, of course. So I like to jump in and why'd you join the Navy? And before you actually joined the Navy, tell me a little bit about your childhood.
Well, you know, good old Marine Corps stuff. My father was a Vietnam veteran. He's one of those cannon cockers, 111 guy, Vietnam vets. And growing up with a Marine Corps dad, hey man, you get locked in pretty quick. So mindset, resilience that I speak, you know, highly on, relatable to stress inoculation. I'll say this with the Marine Corps dad, he, gets you out there to where you're going to experience the world, but not completely crumble. And that's what being a dad is. Very vital in mental health, formulating who we are today. So, dad gave me everything that I am to where I'm at right now with all my fingers and toes. And in that gold standard of mentally okay. Hey, that's what I'm just really trying to shoot for across a lot of platforms. It's just let's just try and hit that mentally okay spot. Um, Growing up with the dad, we moved around quite a bit. So again, stress inoculation, getting put in completely new environments. You're a brand new person and starting the whole game over again. I think that was vital with, when you hit rock bottom, be it whatever mental state you're in, from addictions, from whatever source it, originated from, whatever traumatic event, stress inoculation helps quite a bit building that resiliency and being able to just get back on your feet, get on your knees, move up to a crouching position. Let's get moving forward, That's as simple as that.
Yeah, take pride after your dad. Was your dad around a lot when you were a kid?
Yeah, still is. Dad, I'm in my 50s. My dad's getting up there, about to about to hit the big 80. So he's still
Jesus.
going strong, man. And I mean, he's out working, doing the whole shebang. Credit that to the Marine Corps.
The Marine Corps does not make soft men. It a lot of times it creates those individuals that are a little bit more ornery and can be able to grit through most stuff.
Yeah. Everything that we pride ourselves on as veterans, standing up and fighting for that Constitution. man, it gets completely flipped around when, integrating back into, after service into the public, we're usually looked at as that asshole. And it's a lot of times we're just pointing pointing things out, So that again, get right there, we have that viewpoint, and what is it? 97% of the population doesn't serve. So it's only 3% of us that serve. And then when you're getting out and you're you're right there with those civilians, that isolation definitely increases.
One of the characteristics I've been actually pondering on for quite some time is you hear this often, like, "Hey, I don't know how to relate to these people." And a lot of the people that we start to integrate with, we're like, "Hey, this is how I blow off steam. This makes sense to me. I don't understand how to de-escalate in the way that you're comfortable with, because the the realistic of life and death plays such a vital role inside our brain, the way that we think, and it's hard to look at the gray area, nor to look at the colored area."
Yeah. I don't even know where to start on that one. That's a great point. Um, but getting back to the childhood, and I could kind of expound on that. Moving around and helping build that resiliency through stress inoculation. Another form of that is just within these group communities and hearing stories from the same guys that are just like you in the same positions. And you'll see this in any 12-step program. But the key for me is, trying to be a translator, somewhat not so much on say technical to the different departments that aren't talking, but to try to build that bridge, and connect the disconnected. That's what I'm really trying to get to, you know, concerning translating the hard subjects and conversations to the general public. So yeah, trying to speak in a great communication fashion, especially when you're a veteran and they teach you voice inflection, get it out. I mean, it's like that conversation. I mean, they're teaching you how to talk. But then the second that you try that out in, your civilian world, that definitely gets uh, a different perspective, coming, well, I wouldn't say a different perspective, but it's just that translation. So,
Did you did you notice that when you were translating out of the Navy?
yeah, coming from the amphibious reconnaissance corpsman community and that side of the house concerning medical, how you do things in a medical fashion, I left the Navy and went into nursing, flight nursing, paramedic, flight nurse, ICU nurse, DR. So, man, I'm used to number one is safety of the patient and being an advocate for the patient. And, you get into that civilian world and you definitely see a whole new light of things being the money, other objectives, politics, all that BS, which that focus and goal in the Marine Corps was we're just going to win the fight no matter what it takes. And that civilian world, a lot of politics, a lot of feelings. So it was tough. I will definitely say extremely tough. And and for me, it's not like a straight male nurse can just go into a room full of other female nurses and start doing the military thing, trying to fit in. It's not like I'm going to, get any props for being a veteran, from a lot of them, because that's just how it is, being a man working in a female dominated world, especially in healthcare. A lot of it is those viewpoints. It does seem like the majority is on the right, a lot of liberal ideations. So we don't get accepted as well as a lot of other professions.
I think it's also comes down to the way that we communicate to other people. Like, when you are the one that's saying, "Hey, this is what we need to do, and we're gonna do it," it's we're less about feelings and we're more about, "Hey, we need to get stuff done." The other aspect of, like, what I learned quite a bit is that the corpsmen, they have a different type of mental health issue because they're the ones that have been, "Hey, I'm protecting you, I'm taking care of you." Now, all of a sudden, who's coming to take care of me? But the question is, do you even know how to allow somebody else to help take care of you? So now communicating with people like a different understanding because they didn't have the same world experience that you did. Life and death, very gray, no, very black and white. Like, did you find that possibly communicating with them might have been the biggest hardship, the hurdle to connect with them?
I think it's not so much the goal concerning anything or any topic, but yeah, the communication from the beginning. Just trying to effectively communicate. And when you're a ex Marine white dude with a little voice inflection and some sergeant courses under your belt, then that doesn't come across, or that translation perspective, from the civilian side, I see definitely as just being one of those dudes. And I think the goal of being a advocate, patient safety, and whatever goal that you need kind of gets lost in that translation, simply because of yeah, 97% of the US population has never served, so they truly can't have any comprehension of, say, like, one thing that we say a lot as corpsmen is that use of a Bible scripture. I'm wanting to say John 15:13. Don't quote me on that, but no greater love, being that friend who was willing to lay down his life for another. Yeah, trying to effectively take that basis that is in my DNA as a corpsman and translate that into being a medical practitioner, from medical doctor, registered nurse, paramedic. That kind of gets lost in there.
You were also talking about, and it was actually one of the same lines of the flight of the pilots, the ones that are actually pulling each other in about the communication and even getting help. Like, what's some of your perspectives of how could we be able to communicate to them to say, hey, it's okay to actually get mental health and but not be used against them?
The only way that I've personally found is through certain providers who can provide the anonymous factor. So I'm a big voice for sound off. This app was originally uh, formed by an ex CIA guy, and his brother in law was a SEAL Team 6 guy, a name of Mulder. So, coming back after multiple deployments, you'll see you'll see guys coming off of one, two, three, multiple deployments, but there's usually one that they come back and something's changed. Their significant others notice it, family, something significant has changed. So, with this app, what it provides is, number one, it's free. I personally have up to 200 1 hour sessions provided for free through the Marine Reconnaissance Foundation. And you can see this in across the board, from Leo, FBI, CIA, all the branches can provide this. So I've got up to 200 1 hour free counseling sessions with a trauma certified psychologist. That's a big help. Not social workers, that kind of stuff. This is the real deal. On top of that, this is a voice over internet protected uh, conversation. It's not recorded in any fashion. It's VOOP. They actually give you a color, an animal, and some numbers, and it's your code word. I think I'm Blackbird five something. So she doesn't know, or he, the psychologist, doesn't know who they're talking to, but they're there to do their job. And that, for me, as well as other guys who've served in everything from ground branch CIA to the FBI to every other military service, Dev Group, SF, Green Berets. The thing is, you cannot say anything about maybe needing a little mental health, even though we're at the pinnacle of stressful. I mean, you got your ROEs, people shooting at you, but you can't shoot them the second they drop their gun. I mean, it's just nuts with the pressure and say CQB. That has got to be the most dangerous job on the planet, hands down. But the second that you start talking about, hey, mental health, I might need to go talk to some people, you are a liability, and you definitely see it in the flight community. I know myself being a flight nurse and flight paramedic, you say anything, or pilot especially says something because, hey, they're driving the bus. If they say something, you're yanked, you're not on the fly line, you're sitting. So that has been a major thing for me is that it is anonymous because as a firefighter, before I even joined the Navy, I was a professional firefighter. After leaving the Navy, I'd worked in a fashion as a professional firefighter and paramedic as well. From paramedic to your nursing, CUs, multiple professions and hats I've worn in medicine. You can use your EAP, but there's people that will start talking about it. Whoever you went to talk to, the one above them, it is not a secret that you've used your EAP for some kind of mental health counseling. So right there, you're dinged. And that stigma is why people do not reach out.
I remember talking about this with several people. As soon as you start talking about something, you get pulled off your mission, you get pulled off your identity. You're not there to be able to support your boys. I've, I have a perspective on how insurance companies are the ones in liability purposes, like trying to become a police officer with PTSD, you have to jump through extra hoops to be a firefighter. You kind of get dinged. You don't even want to say kind of. You get dinged, and it takes away your ability to provide for your family. And the thing that is trying to help you out so you can be more of a stable person, now it gets used against you.
Absolutely. And you talk about those hoops that people go through. I can say this. I have a lot of friends that have gone through the family court process. Let me tell you how this term best interest of the children gets translated. It gets translated into any form or fashion, which, most people, the public, and as well as family court system, your guardian ad litems, therapists, the lawyers, the judges, this best interest is translated into due diligence. Now you think, right when you hear that, hey, that's a good thing, due diligence. But no, all that translates into is a lot of money. Say, for instance, the veterans going through any kind of family court is the fact that you get, you have to pay in a lot of courts for your own mental evaluation. And these mental evaluations are provided by the same bottom of the barrel practitioners that are employed by Department of Children Family Services, DHS, et cetera. These are the guys that are on their last legs trying to be providers with multiple true findings from doing this wrong or that wrong. And these are the people employed by the court system themselves. So you see, this translation to the public sounds great, due diligence, best interest of the children. No, it's just a money making scam. And I'll say that simply by the multiple psych evaluations that they make veterans go through. It's insane.
It is insane. I don't have any kids, but I've actually heard about quite a bit about guys having losing custody of their kids, or they have full custody of the kids. The mom goes away. She gets put away because of mental health issues or substance abuse. She gets back out, and then all of a sudden the kids go back to a little bit less than 50-50 with their dad and they go back to their mom. It's horrible that we create all these extra hoops for people to go through, and it's almost like men are demonized just because of their possibility, and veterans, they get demonized because of their training, but then being a combat vet, you get even more demonized because of all the stigmas around it. And when you start talking about it, you get dinged again. So it's like you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't.
Absolutely. And this is why I love Headstrong is because it provides that anonymous that fashion. No one knows that you're talking to a psychologist and it's amazing.
It's it would be amazing too. I know for myself, and I've been lucky to be able to go through different modalities of therapy, and it's helped me out quite a bit. And
Me too.
but at the same time, it took me a while to be able to trust a therapist, to trust a person. And I was like, you have a black and white receipt. How are you supposed to help me out? And I believe one of the things that would really help us out is if we had somebody that could walk us through and be able to normalize this type of perspective. Now, removing some of these barriers and helping us know how to communicate without actually feeling like we're being prosecuted based off of what we say. It's it sucks because a lot of times when we do decide to get help, it's when it becomes a crisis moment. And then was a crisis moment, we're finally being seen. But then when we actually when we get out of it, we are having a difficulties trying to communicate with people why we got to that crisis moment. And I believe it's a breakdown of communication and it's actually being forced upon us to be stuck in silence, but now trying to help people say, hey, let's talk about this. Let's have this type of conversation. Let's actually start to promote it instead of actually needing to be careful and weary about what's going to be used against us.
Absolutely. When you talk about things being used against you and say, I can go again back to the family court. These psychologists, therapists, and whatnot who are provided by a family court, I mean, it definitely makes you don't where you don't want to say anything because it can be used against you. I mean, and I've seen it on the civilian side in the flight service. Same thing. You think you're doing what everybody wants you to do. Speak out, say you got a problem, before you blow your brains out, which for me was exactly where I was. And you can't say anything and you just have to hope and pray that, maybe you hook up with a good buddy that can kind of help you through the times or, some kind of 12-step program. But yeah, it does not seem like the people like me and you who would be able to just sit down and start talking, that ability to do that for the general public, I think, is not that great, and definitely
I
is an improvement. I mean, the ease of access. Just look at what happened this past week, and that sergeant, he was the second one who committed suicide on the steps of that San Antonio VA, and his number one thing that I'd seen, just in the Marine Corps circles, was ease of access. This is the number one thing that I really speak on is that ability to even get any kind of mental health counseling, and I'm not talking about EAP, but any other services out there. The ease of access, I'm in what's known as the void of Colorado. I mean, it's wasteland out here in the middle of nowhere. Purgatory River Valley is what it used to be known, if that tells you anything. So the ease of access is not that great, one, because a lot of people actually need a phone. And where I'm at in rural farm communities, big Hispanic population, I mean, look at what kind of problem. If we've got obstacles, I can't imagine the obstacles of people, low income, poverty levels, which when do you need it the most? Probably when you're on your last leg financially and about to snap. So ease of access, number one. Um, and while I've been talking to this psychologist, for her, and I agree as well, is that ease of access. Number two is just starting the conversations. That's all it is. So that's as simple as that. Just find it. For me, it was headstrong. Sound off. There's some others. Headstrong's a great one. There's a lot of apps out there that I think are actually better than anything that you're going to find your EAP, but that's just my personal experience with EAP. And you've seen, I'm a guy, times that I'm speaking of are from the middle 2000s up to, 2015, when to me, suicide prevention awareness, mental health awareness, it was just getting started. The EA, if I'm seem like I'm really bad mouthing EAP type thing, I'm just saying that's the time I came from and the jobs that I came from. So that's what led me to get outside of that and start working with sound off.
So what's actually interesting is that we we put these things in process to be able to be improved. And I've had this conversation, and one of the questions I've been asking is, are we trying to check a box or are we actually here for patient care? And when I actually look at it, it's how are we able to help somebody? But there was several things that I wanted to bring it back to was one of the areas I noticed is especially a lot of combat vets, they come from lower social economics. They have a difficulty about communicating. They have the hardships of typically the father not being around. We don't have that type of role model that is able to say, hey, you know what, we're going to talk through these emotions. Has this beautiful conversation about boys showing anger, and that's actually kind of gets shut. It does most of the time, it gets shut down instead of getting asked, hey, why are we angry? But then now we have with these other stigmas that goes against us, basically being a provider. How does this look? What am I going to say? Is it going to be used against me? But opening up the access of for people to speak anonymously will help out a lot. But the other thing is that a lot of us are having really normal reactions to adverse events. And when we were able to now talk to somebody anonymously, wow, I can't even say the word right now. And you're not worried about losing your job. You're not worried about being pulled off of the team. You're not worried about, hey, I'm a mental health provider. Not me, but I'm just saying, like, you're a medical provider, and then you're getting pulled off of being a flight crew because now you're a liability. Or they're saying it's for your best interest. But knowing yourself that you want to be able to show up for your people, it creates this whole like this pinch point of not being able to provide true access to care because the access of care, you know, you're going to get totally eroded and broken down.
Yeah, for me, try trying to speak to the psychologist or therapist or whoever is provided by whoever you're working for me, it felt like I was answering the questions or trying to steer a conversation into how my employer and this psychologist should be checking that box off because there's going to be an evaluation and recommendation. So right there from the jump, you're not being honest. So be honest, I mean, is key. The truth. So that's kind of hard to do because not only for me, those feelings like I need to be saying what they want to hear, the fact that once you go through, well, this is what 97% of the population doesn't understand in America is once you go through some things and you see the world totally different light in foreign countries and you see what the world's really like, you build this whole entire vocabulary in your head after, while you're in service. I mean, that's what they do. What's that? What's the jarhead thing? I heard jarhead comes from the Marine Corps is going to dump everything out of your head and refill it with the Marine Corps. So they did a pretty good job with me, and I'm a corpsman. So getting out, my emotional vocabulary was shit. So getting back to trying to talk to your civilian counterparts, I mean, I can't even verbally express it in any kind of thing that can be understood simply because my emotional vocabulary has been replaced by kill, simplify, do or die, and on and on. And this goes for the other services as well.
So, what helped you or when you got out of the Navy, what actually helped you to be able to coexist or be able to perform?
Man, that was tough. You know, after growing up, graduated high school, and being just like you said, economics. Um, I actually joined the fire service my senior year in high school, where I was at 18. We had a part-time paid per call type fire department. So this was $5 a call that you could get even if you were late and didn't make it to the fire engine on time. You sat around the firehouse and helped them clean up afterwards, you get $5. So right there, man, I say this a lot being EMS and fire services and police, a lot of these are really low paying, entry level jobs. And once you get in it, you're almost stuck. You don't even have the time to go to school to improve yourself, and then if you got a family, man, it's almost like you're stuck in it. But the fire service, I was able to, I'll say that the fire service was really close to the military for me. And also be going through the State Fire Academy and being in the fire service, a lot of those instructors and other firefighters were veterans. So sitting around the fire station, I did that for about 3 years, got tired of answering 90% medical calls. I was really hoping to fight some fire. That doesn't happen too much. So I got the idea to go into the Navy. And I had a good roommate friend at that time. He was a law enforcement officer. And this is back before internet when you can, pull up and see what Navy SEALs is all about. He had a coffee table book, this big, nice one on Navy SEALs. So, man, I just started thumbing through it. And that's when the seeds started getting planted. I left my job as a professional firefighter and EMT in, geez, 94. So left 94, went into the Navy, and Navy boot camp. This is when we had it in Orlando. I think it's closed out. I think it's just in Great Lakes now. A boot camp, go to A school for corpsman, and knock out the corpsman school. While I was there, able to put in a package for basic basic underwater demolition SEAL training. Say that one 4 times fast. I was able to put that package in, and after core school, was able to go to SEAL training in Coronado, California in class 201. So from there, I ended up washing out. Hey, but here's the thing. I say this about ringing that bell in Coronado and washing out of SEALs. That was, for a few years, I was really down on myself and hard, beat myself on it, even for years afterwards, um, because I quit. So for me, that was what I relate to stress inoculation, and not so much rock bottom with addiction or anything else, but having that goal and dream of something that just ain't going to happen. That's part of that stress inoculation. Get up, dust yourself off, keep moving forward. Because thank God for that. Washing out, I was able to hang around Coronado for about a year. And from there, I went to the amphibious reconnaissance community and graduated basic recon course 2 Tech 97 in West Coast side. So hung around there, got out right in 99 and went back to the fire service as a firefighter paramedic. Cool thing about uh, Navy medicine and Marine reconnaissance is the ability to pick up that paramedic. So, any great jumping off point for medicine, U.S. Navy medicine is definitely a way to go because of how it translates to the outside and civilian jobs. So I left active duty, back to firefighting, paramedic, and then 9/11 happened, and that's a whole nother story.
What I was asking was when you left the Navy, were you able to, like, keep pushing on? What was some of the motivators to continue to keep pushing on? And what were some of the challenges that you felt, like, after the Navy, and then you joined if I remember correctly, you became a paramedic immediately after, correct?
Right. Yeah, moving back from that community into the civilian population, it wasn't any feeling of superiority or anything of that nature or no anything. It was almost like I really needed to keep my mouth shut. I don't want to be letting everybody know that I was a vet. I'm not the guy wearing the hats and caps and t-shirts and bumper stickers and wanting to let everybody know that I was a veteran, especially at that time. Just because of that persona that gets built, you come in post military with this mindset from these guys who have been, my first command master chief was Dennis Chalker. And if you know who Dennis Chalker is, he was a plank owner of Red Sail. That's what is now known as Navy SEAL Team 6 and Dev Group. So these are the guys that were in my ass and running beside me, talking about how I need to pick it up. So these guys are the ones that really got my mindset straight. And in the reconnaissance community, man, you want to talk about having it locked in is those guys and having those great men in front of me. Because without good people in front of you, those guys you can emulate, even try to talk like. Unless you're around those kind of guys and in that community, you just don't see it. So for me, translating that into the civilian side, yeah, that was really tough. It was so tough for me that for being a firefighter paramedic, when 9/11 happened, the opportunity to go and be an independent contractor, providing medical services and security overseas to the energy sectors in various countries, I jumped on that. So
Hmm.
that's how much I disliked my time coming from. But again, those amphib recon guys, that community is something else. So leaving that and then back, even the fire service, even as a firefighter paramedic, that's those are pretty squared away dudes. But still, it was just a really tough time. So tough for me that I was willing to go straight to Africa. And after 9/11 happened, I was in Mombasa, Kenya, and headed to Somalia 42 days after 9/11.
That's well, actually, Djibouti used to be one of the biggest jump sites for a lot of teams and a lot of other operators, and that's usually where a lot of people want to go get some. The When you kinda get bit by the I don't wanna say kind of, when you get bit by the bug of when you experience combat, it becomes one of the most drugs that you would chase. It's like you feel so present, you feel so alive, and when you're there, it's very overwhelming because you wanna keep going back there.
Yeah, and for me, I heard this one thing. It was presented to me in this fashion: the only thing there is the eternal present moment. You know, the stuff that's happened previous to that eternal present moment is supposed to just get you going for the next few seconds or minutes ahead of you. I mean, this is how pinpoint this thinking and this mindset gets going. So, this eternal present moment for us, it was to get rid of all emotions through just repetitive training. I mean, that's the point of that training is to remove your emotions. And it is just something that happens without you thinking. So coming from that community and that eternal present moment, it really helped me kind of formulate, you know, what really matters. And especially in mental health, man, that has been a real key on, when I communicate and try to talk to other fellow guys, we're so broken and it's almost like anything from that eternal present moment is simply based off of all the past trauma. And we formulated all the ways that we can try to even express that. It's fucked up. Simple as that.
I don't wanna say it's broken. The way I've been looking at it and reframing it, it's
Mhm.
that there's so many different pinch points along the way that creates these barriers or challenges to learn how to communicate exactly what we need.
Absolutely. And again, nobody's going to be able to get through those pinch points or over those obstacles without somebody kind of, you've had something in your head. You've seen the other guys run the O course in Coronado. before. So you know this one's going to be tough. I need to do this one a little different. We got one obstacle we call a dirty name. You're taking it right in the nuts to get it. So to get over that obstacle. So it's just something you really got to sit there and have in your head, but you're aware of it because of the other guys showing you running, having one guy run the obstacle course just to give you an example. And this is the same thing that we have to do in mental health and normalizing mental health to get that stigma out. And it's through these conversations.
I agree. Actually, getting these type of conversations out there, the having people be aware of what's going on, but then also, what are some of the I don't want to say challenges, but what's some of the ways that we could be able to help with helping people create the ability to have that conversation? Well, we're going to have barriers. We're going to have stigmas based off of mental health providers. Then we're going to have people that are filtering out this type of information. Does it go with policy? Does it start from the top down, or does it start from the bottom up, or does it actually go from the hamburger, the meat in the middle, and push out? And the only way that I can actually see it is like what I can do is just get on these conversations, help people realize that, hey, it is time for a change. It is okay to eat shit and actually move forward. And if you really want to love other people, you got to actually like go through it. And not everybody's going to be okay with going down that line with you, but it's okay helping or realizing that we can create these communities of guys and friends to be able to help push us forward, and so we won't get as stifled.
I'm right there with you, man. This is the only way I can. I'm a crayon eater, medical dude. I don't know anything about mental health and trying to like change legislation and make it, reforms in different areas, but I'm working on it. So again, just having these conversations and having other people out there listening, that's what it's going to take for me from the ground up. And from there, I'll kind of hone it. I'll look at some peer support specialists, which I do, just throwing time around, and kind of move from there. But simply having these conversations, of dudes who can actually translate the difficult topics into something readable, listenable, understandable is key. And hopefully, this will translate into these other services. I'm big on, hey, being a medical. What do we do? We're the guys who are giving the classes, those pocket, pull it out your pocket class. The very first one that I did, what was the first class, pocket hip class that you heard from a corpsman? Can you remember?
I don't really actually,
Yeah,
the last one I can remember was the cat tourniquets, and
yeah,
when we went
okay,
over the c yeah,
yeah. The very first one I remember doing was on sexually transmitted diseases. So the way that us corpsmen do it, we've got a nice big poster with the most outrageous looking medical pictures that will, yeah, definitely make you rethink some things. So that's us. We get out there and we're just in that face with outrageous stuff, education, and that was that form. But for this and mental health, I definitely think the education concerning your therapist, counselors, social workers, even to the point of judges and your lawyers, you know, as far as education concerning just who we are and how we express ourselves. I think that would be an incredible leap, concerning because I mean, look at it, look at us vets. When we're getting out, what are we usually doing? I come from the good old Navy, drinking culture, man. So, we get out, it's that drinking culture that has been shoved down our throats, along with PTSD and everything else, which leads us up to the possibility of criminal stuff. And you're going to be in the courtroom. So, I think the education of the court employees, from the court clerks to the judges to the therapists, everyone, I think the education definitely needs to be stepped up on that part. Not so much for the public, but for the people who are kind of that meat in the middle of the burger you were talking about.
so I've seen it with the court system over here in Montana, like, Billings has a camel court over here, maybe Colorado does too, but they've been helping out individuals that have substance abuse to trying to, instead of just throwing them in jail, they are trying to rehabilitate them based off of extra punishments, making it harder for them to be able to do things, but making them feel the pain, going through a substance abuse class, which people are like, "Oh, I don't have a substance abuse problem." Well, a lot of what substance abuse is teaching these individuals is how to delay the gratification instead of, "Hey, how do we actually change up the situation?" Well, I was actually dealing. I wasn't actually drinking, or I wasn't actually using. Well, you are looking for a quick buck. What is your role in this whole system? And helping people realize that. So I've seen it on a multitude of levels. Is it being streamlined? Absolutely not. If are we trying to streamline things? If we do, we're going to also miss a lot of the people. For instance, even though that you live in Colorado and I live in Montana, and you live at a higher elevation than I do, and you say elevation has an issue with suicide, the problem that also happens and arises is that what's good for you guys is not always good for us. And even though we might have some of the similarities, we're a lot more rural. Where we right now, I think for the last decade, Alaska, Montana, and Wyoming have had the highest rates of suicide. We rotate one, two, and three. And what they're like, okay, why don't we actually implement some of the stuff that happens in New York City over here? Well, it doesn't work like that. Are we actually hitting the people where they're at? So things being tailored would help out. Information would be helped out. I had a great conversation with somebody from a different county in Montana that's a lot more rural, and they had less than 10,000 people in their county. And when we were having this conversation, they're like, "Well, how do we get these guys into mental health?" And I said, "Are you building this facility or this system for them, or are you building it for you?" And they looked at me in a way like, "Whoa, what do you mean by that?" Well, I'm asking the question because I'm asking you to think about this. What are you doing? Because if you're doing it for yourself, are you missing the mark? I asked them, "Do you have a champion to talk about mental health?" Like, think about that person that came into your life that said, "Hey, Jeremy, it's time for a change. Hey, I'll walk beside you. It's time for you to actually look at yourself in the mirror." Where a lot of times what we would tell people is, "Hey, go make that phone call, call 988, go do this." Well, how many people are willing to walk beside somebody and say, "Hey, this really sucks. I want to walk beside you. I understand this is a shit show. This is where your peer support's coming involved because they've had similar journeys." But now translating that to another person saying, "Hey, are we using this as a crutch or are we actually using this as a beneficial tool?" And it's trying
Yeah.
to help them have that multi-language conversation.
Yeah. And I think what gets lost in translation with that is a lot of these people, their intentions are good, counseling, therapists, whatnot. But at the same time, just like you said, they're building facilities and people are making money off of it. For me, man, I had a real feeling that when I would reach out to a lot of other organizations or people, advocacy groups, the only people who cared were making money off of it somehow. So I like what you're saying with just having, a fellow guy, a mentor. This is what I love about Sound Off. My mentor is a former Force Recon uh, crew chief, leader from the front. So just like when me and you, when we first started talking, just within a minute or two, you had said something that I picked up on. Again, I didn't know at that time that you were a Marine, but our conversation changed immediately. And it's simply knowing that you've been through some shit, and that's what changes the conversation. So we have this tradition among corpsmen. It's kind of like a field notes thing, but it's everything that you've learned as a corpsman, and certain techniques. And these are like things that you're not going to find in any kind of A&P manual, or how to, insert a chest tube or needle decompression. I mean, just all kinds of stuff. All these little really helpful tips get put into a little field notebook, and you hand it down to the corpsman who's coming behind you. And I think that's what we need to do and look at it that way as men, not only men, women, anyone talking about normalizing mental health needs to do it in that fashion. That's the best way that I can from where I'm at. So here we are.
I love that idea, and eventually what I wanted to do is after about a year of doing these consistently, I think after about the 52nd episode that I do, I will take a perspective. I think I'm up to 52 already, and
Strong
take
work, man.
um it's really taking the time out, writing it down, thinking about what are some of the commonalities, what are some of the stuck points, what are some of the challenges, the barriers, obviously occupation. I had a conversation with he's a nurse and he's a nurse manager. And we were
Mm,
having a conversation. He said to
been
me,
there.
he was like, he's like, "Yeah, mental health, like, they don't use it against you." I said, "Bullshit. They fucking do." And he said, "No, they don't." And I said, honestly, about police jobs, you're trying to get a police job and if you have PTSD, he's like, I'm like, "They create," he's like, "It doesn't do it." I said, "They create extra challenges and extra barriers." He's like, "All right, yeah, I understand what you're saying." I said, "Oh, what you're doing is that you're trying to be dismissive at first, and then realizing that, yes, you will admit that it creates all these extra tension points." Because it's like what people don't realize is it's like, well, you want me to act normal, you want me to be treated normal, but then you want me to be kind of like branded in a way of, hey, you can actually be normal because of X, Y, and Z.
Yep. A big problem I see just with what you said. Did this nurse, me being a nurse, did he serve?
He actually served Greenside.
Ah, wow. I'm a little disappointed on that one. But at the same time, these people who haven't had it to experience needing to reach out and the steps that it takes to get mental health counseling just don't know. And a big problem I think that we have is something that you'll see across the board. It's called the white coat syndrome. You put that white coat on, immediately you are a knowledgeable guy and people need to listen. So you get in those professions wearing that white coat and you start educating the public and telling people how to do it. you know it's almost like they're just waiting for their next time to talk and they're not listening to you, just like he really didn't take time to think about that one.
I call it reacting, not listening. What a lot of people want to do is actually be heard. They want to be listened to. For instance, you sharing in a moment, or if I shared a moment with you that was actually really mentally hard triggering, and if you come back to me, you're like, "That sounds really hard."
Yeah,
Ah,
yeah,
fuck
yeah,
you. Fuck
right,
you. Just like
yeah.
it's like, if I talk through something and all of a sudden you help me create that space, and if you really are listening, be like, "Yo, dude, it sounded like that was just like."
Right.
I remember my old therapist that really helped me break ground. He was like, "Dude, all right, man, that fucking sucked. Now I want you to take the emotions now, and I want you to put it here, and this is why." And it's like, so you not only did you want me to get kicked in the shit over and over again, now you want me to increase the intensity. And the person is like, well, this is going to be X, Y, and Z. But at the same time, if I just sit in front of you and you just say, wow, that sounds difficult.
Yeah, feeling it. I'm getting my money's worth.
Yep. And
Yeah. And
there's like
again,
a good.
for me, it was having the right people, being a trauma informed psychologist. That for me, that helped me.
It does. And there's like different people that really help out. Like I have had a privilege to work with a really amazing mental health team. And there was a situation that happened the other day. And I was talking to this one vet and got them involved. And they talked to the therapist. And I said, hey, dude, because before you talk to the therapist, I was like, hey, this is something that you need to talk about. Because I noticed that I was like, your emotions are rising up now, there, dude. And instead of saying this is hard, I'm like, yep, your emotions. I'm like, this is the area you talk about. It did. And it created this little scene between him and the therapist understood that all he was doing was having an expression of emotions and didn't get mad at him. They didn't take it as fear. They took it as a person like a little boy trying to be able to express himself and actually being able to feel it out. And what I really love is when I had a therapist that was able to sit with me and say, you know, got you, bud. I'm here with you. I'm not your whatever your temper tantrums you're going to do is not going to push me away. Whatever you try to push is not going to hurt me. I'm
Yeah,
just here to walk beside you. And I think honestly, a lot of times that's what we need from a person that is a therapist.
absolutely. I work in integrative health coaching and integrative medicine. The thing with integrative medicine is nobody is exactly the same. I mean, look at your fingerprint. So nobody is exactly the same simply because everyone's life is different than everyone else's. So just like you said, coming from New York City and taking the things that work out there compared to Montana, it just doesn't work. So it's got to be tailored for that specific person. I think this is the big thing is when some of our first interactions in any kind of mental health are shit. I mean, that's it. We'll give it one or two chances and we're done. But the key is trying to get past that obstacle and finding the right connection with therapists or what your goal is. Um, as simple as that for me is trying to find that right fit. And then, and another aspect is one of the jobs that I provide is what's called a death doula. Not many people know about this, but this comes from being a hospice nurse, and making those last steps before death a little more tolerable, but also educating the family as well and trying to make this process easier, really monetized in fashion. So I didn't like that aspect. Death doula, we're providing a presence, right there beside them and helping them walk to that door. And this is exactly what we need to do in mental health. It's just provide a presence, a little education, and walk them to that door. I mean, because it gets back down to mental health. Hey, just like if people want to know about Navy SEAL training, recon, Green Berets, any of these really high, hard things, it simply gets down to as do you want it or not? Simple as a
So I'm gonna ask a question. What got you into being a death doula?
after 30 plus years nursing, I could go on and on about this one. But for me, the monetization has just completely gotten out of hand. Patients, the word patient has been changed to the word client. So now, your original goal of fixing the medical problem. I mean, I'm all definitely for client interaction and the patient themselves telling me everything, but now it's just a big business and the caring part is completely gone. And maybe that's just because of 30 plus years of street paramedic ER stuff, seeing the worst things that humanity do to each other. Wasn't that actually? It was the fact that administration, um, they're more about that money than other goals. So that's why I left. I like integrative health coaching because, even in mental health, I'm a big advocate for the mental health. And with integrative health coaching, your nutrition, supplements, you got that regimen, you're working out. There's so many benefits of that that I think is an absolute cornerstone and building block for having that okay mental space.
Well, for sake of time, Jeremy, because I told you I'll hold you up for about an hour, and then we can always get back on a different
Sure.
time.
Yeah.
What is the message that you want people to hear from you?
Let's take the cotton out of our ears and put it in our mouth and just listen. That would be an easy one. That's how I would translate it to the general public. But if you wanted to say it in a different fashion, it's the fact that we just need to provide a presence. We need to have good men out there having these discussions and lighting the path for others to follow. That's it.
That idea. It's listen more, speak less.
Yeah, everyone's got a solution, especially the ones who have never been in it. It's amazing.
I appreciate it. Hey, Jeremy, thank you so
Yes,
much
sir.
for making the time.
Hey, thank you, Devil Dog. Looking forward to more of it, man.